Hi guys, I'm Dawson from Team Lechuga. I just got top 4 at the Atlanta Regional, and I was playing everybody's least favorite, apparently, Porco Galliard. This deck is very much streamlined. We're trying to do one thing. We're trying to do one thing well, and that is not always turn to our opponent, but we're trying to win the game as fast as possible and stop our opponent from backswinging if we can. So for the attacks, we have 4 Jaw Titan's Bite. Most people know what this card does. Basically a way to get extra damage throughout our turn, but also a discard outlet, and it gets extra attacks. For another 4 of, we have Mighty Blitz. This is kind of our toolbox card. Lets us get an attack out of our discard pile. It gets very big, has powerful 4 if you ever take a poke turn, and really sets up your best combo with double teaming with the Attack Titan. So this card, obviously you probably know what this does. It gets very cheap, and Porco keeps picking it up and keeps playing it again and again, and eventually your opponent's just going to lose to that. And 4 copies of Besiege. Besiege is like a different type of teaming. Sometimes your opponent just doesn't have the blocks for it, and it is a fantastic poke. And sometimes Besiege in a teaming will do it just as well as 2 teamings. One of the biggest changes from the deck from Louisville is Flash Fire Fist Hellspider. This card does everything the deck kind of already wanted, and it's just a piece that was missed before. Giving speed to your whole team for the whole turn is just insane. It has crazy stats for a 4 diff, and if you cycle, you're even giving damage for the turn, so all your moves have 2/2 for the turn, and that is absolutely absurd. 1 copy of Enough Talk. So this is a card that we wanted to potentially play more of because it is anywhere from 1 to 4 attacks with a single card. My personal biggest gripe with this card was simply that it was a 5 diff. We are trying to string on turn 2, and if we have to play 5 diffs, it is automatically more risky. But this card also has a 1 high block, and that does come up. And for the last attack, we're still on the armbar. Armbar just, in some matchups, depending on your hand, if you couldn't build a second time, you really need that extra damage output. And I didn't, throughout the tournament, ever have to play it out of my hand, which is kind of the goal of playing 1 instead of multiple copies, so we don't ever have to play it out of our hand. And I never hit it off of Enough Talk either, because we simply play 1. So onto our actions, we just play 3, and it is 3 copies of Barrier Shield. Barrier Shield is just a versatile card. Obviously, everybody knows what this does. You can set a speed to 0, and you can breaker 2 them. But in this deck, it is not only defense, but it can actually help you string easier, because with Porco, you can add this in after you add an attack to your hand, and it doesn't count towards progressive difficulty. And I actually had one time in the tournament, I strung out with 2 of these in my hand, and it was absolutely wonderful because I didn't have any other way to kind of cheat my progressive, and so it got me there. On to our foundations, we have one of the best cards in the entire game, Marley's Warriors. So turns out that +1 to all of your attack checks for an entire turn for absolutely no reason is unfair. I think that is all that needs to be said about this card. Probably, in my opinion, one of the most important cards in this deck is Dark Ward. This card is one of the most versatile cards in the game right now. Not only does it stop your breaker, but in the pony matchup, it stops your lethal slash response from removing itself. This stops Echo. This stops just literally any random interaction like Dragon Strike. Like this card is insane. I could never cut this card from 4.
Yeah, Airy Smiles, like we could go on, like just everything.
Yeah, the referee jury response of the card pull even.
Yeah.
4 copies of Latent Skill. We, on turn 2, are always wanting to find our pieces, and sometimes this isn't even necessarily about finding our pieces. In fact, sometimes it's about sort of hand trapping your opponent with the cards that we're generally milling, but we have lots of ways to do, which are Loss of Consciousness to seal your opponent's board, one of the most insane cards in the entire game. This is how we break boards we shouldn't be allowed to break, finding one, if not multiple, through Porco, through discarding with Jaw Titan's Bite, discarding it with Latent Skill. This card is always going to overperform. It is insane. I'm with you, being able to just mess up your opponent's numbers randomly off the top. Being able to just squeeze in a very difficult, say, 30 plus health character that's really good at defense. This can help you find those numbers. It's just crazy. And the last mill card, or discard card, is Lust for Battle. This card says Combat Phase and not Enhanced Step. I was checking this card a lot and immediately responding with it for essentially a +1 speed offensively. Defensively, fake blocking, making your opponent play through essentially a pseudo breaker one. The card put in so much work. The opponent trying to wait to block the right attack, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, I latent skill one out of my hand, mill one with Porco, and suddenly they are breaker 2'd. And absolutely ridiculous. Next, we have 4 copies of Frightening Calm. Nothing different. This card helps you, alongside Loss of Consciousness, building in any of our 12 cards I just mentioned. You get to easily break boards, get to higher numbers, and make your opponent just have to question anytime they want to make an enhance. They have to play around this card, otherwise their board is gone, and I'm going to kill you. So we changed this a little bit. I'm on 2 Capture the Target and 2 Forcing Surrender. So in testing, Capture the Target is almost always great, but Forcing Surrender is a little more versatile, especially in this format. We have Equipment Heist. Forcing Surrender can kick it out of the card pool. Never came up for me, but you get to do the similar thing as before, where you Porco one of your Loss of Consciousness into the card pool. You get to kick it out of the card pool, not only ignoring your progressive difficulty because the card is gone, but also sealing a card in their stage. You could block with something, kick it out of the card pool for minus progressive, and obviously Capture the Target's essentially just an extra foundation. And then for our last 4, we have 4 1-mana Inferno. This card essentially just says Porco mills an extra card on every enhanced step, and sometimes that can, that one extra card every single time can really help you feel less like you have to get lucky to get to your cards, and more like statistics are on your side. And this gets around card stacking the top cards of decks, either or, like a deck like Krista, which I didn't play, but anything like that, anything that wants to stack 6 on top of their deck, like, say, Ryu. This card just was absolutely insane. For the side, it is nothing too awfully complicated. One of the tougher decks are obviously going to be something like Zeke, very popular in the format. Less popular than before, but still very much a menace. For Activate the Coordinate, this card against Zeke, when they're playing things like Jaegerists, is just going to absolutely rip their board apart. You can send this at a 9 Titans, all of the Jaegerists will die, and if they don't have Fill Without, they are just feeling awful when they see this card on your board. Next, we have 2 copies of Hero's Upbringing. I never got to resolve this card, but I unironically had it when it would have mattered sometimes, and I just didn't need to use it. But this card can stop your characters like Ghidorah. It can stop Rodon from speed hating every single move. It can even stop opposing Porcos from beating you that turn. It's extremely versatile. It's just an insanely powerful card. Turning off your opponent's character is absolutely absurd. one of probably the most important cards in this sideboard is Resolute End. Having an action cancel in a format where you've got opponent's heroes upbringings, you've got barrier shield, you've got filled with doubt being literally everywhere, runaway. This card just does it all, and I don't know how I could ever not play this card at some number. For the last two cards, it is two cards for pretty much Deku. They stack a move really big. You just set its speed to 4 so you can block it. Or even, if you're going to take the damage, you can just set its damage if you don't want to block it for some reason. And essentially, originally it was two Desperate Struggles, but never wanted to see 2 3-diffs in my hand because I want to build as best as possible. And also, it's just generally better to have different copies of a card in a matchup where maybe Ice Sword exists. But yeah, this deck did extremely well for me. And yeah, it was an absolute blast to play. All my opponents were super nice. Had an absolutely wonderful time at the event. Hopefully, you'll be seeing more of me soon. Have a good one.